What is going on, everybody? Well, a Halloween edition. Halloween. It is Halloween afternoon for Georgia week. The national tradition of going to RV City is tomorrow, Graham. We are going to party hard. We're going to drink our White Claws and our seltzers, and we're going to throw that thing back all night. I'm not going to do that. You might.
I was going to say, who's we? Because you will not be involved in such activities.
I'll be like, woo.
I was about to say, Dylan, for you to party like that requires you to go outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
That ain't something you do a whole lot.
I was like, RJ was asking me, he's like, what y'all doing for the game? I'm like, well, we got a game tonight. I'm going to golf tomorrow, and then whatever Graham wants to do. I don't have no plans, man. I just go with the flow. I'm Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh. We got the Florida Georgia game on Saturday. Big news came out last night from the injury reports on the desk of Billy Napier. Eugene Wilson is out. That hurts. Lots. Whatever I thought about the offense, my mind changes a lot now with him being out.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning Jason Marshall Jr. also done for the year, but I think most people kind of expected that. His shoulder injury. He got hurt against Kentucky, hurt his shoulder, and came back out in the second half on the sideline with a sling, so that's never a good sign. The shocking one was Eugene Wilson not going to play with a hip injury. It's so frustrating, Dylan, because all year, starting with, I would say, it was the Mississippi State game that Aiden Mizell really came to play.
Yes.
And was really getting a lot of catches. And I remember after that game, thinking to myself, man, once they get Trey Wilson back and you get these two speedsters on the field at the same time, and you've got some of these young backs starting to emerge, you really got some weapons here to carry the ball, pass catching and running. And I was just really excited to see Trey Wilson and Aiden Mizell opposite each other, and that just hasn't really happened yet. And sucks because this is the best football team you're going to play all year, so you'd like to have as many of your best football players as you can have all year, and obviously you're not going to have your best wide receiver. That definitely changes things. To your point, it puts Florida, I think, in a little more of a box offensively. You know, your deep threat is Badger, but I think by box, I mean more horizontally. Eugene is your guy that can run those jet sweeps, can run those screens, can run those underneath routes, and really stretch a defense from sideline to sideline. And against a team like Georgia that's so good up front, that can be really valuable because if I can stretch you sideline to sideline, now my downhill rushing attack can be a little bit more effective. Now my downhill vertical passing game between the numbers can be a little bit more effective. Takes a big hit offensively without having Eugene Wilson in the game.
Yeah, another guy's going to have to step up. And as much as, we've only really talked about the offensive side, we haven't really talked about anything else with this game on Saturday. The more I think about it, Georgia's going to be the main story because Georgia's the better team and Georgia can really do what they want for the most part. I think this game just comes down to them and what they're going to do. Is Carson Beck going to have turnovers? And I know Florida plays a part in it, but it's is Georgia going to be able to run the ball 6 yards a clip? Is Georgia going to have 2-3 turnovers in the first half like they did against Texas?
Because that's a good point, because I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but I just want to mention, that's a good point, because if Florida plays its game and plays it well, and Georgia plays its game and plays it well, Georgia wins by 2 touchdowns, right?
At minimum.
Yeah.
I'd probably say more.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we went into the year Carson Beck thinking that he was going to be the top Heisman guy, the number 1 pick. Hasn't really turned out to be that way. Their offensive line hasn't been as good. There was a point, I think, when they played Kentucky, they went to a 3rd-string center. Who was it? Bobo? Mike Bobo, his son, had to go in at center. So they're not as dominant as they thought they were going to be. Now they're still a good team. One of the receivers got kicked off the team before the year started in late July, early August. So that affects them. But, at the end of the day, it's all about Georgia and what they're going to do. And then, how is Lagway going to be the first time playing in this kind of game? And I know there's nothing that, Brandon Spike's on the team that he can tell him or any other former player you don't know what it's going to be like until you get there. And when you come over the bridge and you see 100,000+ people tailgating and you see the house divided with blue on one side and red on the other, like you don't know what that moment is like until you get there.
You can only describe so much, right? Eventually, you got to get between the white lines and play ball against probably the best team in college football, like we discussed the other day, at least on paper. Yeah, man, we talked about it the other day too. Like with Lagway, the main thing I'm concerned about, and concerned is probably the wrong word. It's more just I'm curious to see how this plays out. So far this year, when he's been really, really effective, has been the downfield passing game, explosive, take the top off the defense type of passing game. This game, I really believe that where there will be profits to be gained, play in, play out, is going to be in the middle of the field. And by the middle of the field, I don't mean horizontally. I don't mean like between the hashes. I mean like 5 yards to 15 yards of profit to gain each play, right? Like slants, out routes, a screen here or there, but Georgia's DBs are so good at getting off blocks that could be a little bit
And their
concerning.
screens haven't worked all year.
Yeah.
For the most part.
So probably scratch the screens thing unless you can figure out when Georgia really wants to send a lot of pressure and get them that way. But it's really dealing that 5 to 15 yard passing game. Can we live in that world and continue to move the ball without your freshman quarterback making a costly mistake, without the offensive line getting holding penalties, without drop passes, stuff like that? I'm hopeful. I'm not 100% optimistic about it.
So how do you think the game goes? I think it's close at half. Georgia starts to pull away late in the third. They get a rhythm somehow on offense. I don't know if it's the run game or the pass game. Georgia wins by 17 to 20 points, depending on how bad Kirby wants to make it.
Do you think Georgia covers?
Yeah.
16.5?
Yeah, that's the last one I've seen.
I generally agree with how the flow of that game will go. I don't believe Georgia covers, though. I think Florida keeps it a little closer. I think the end of the game, the score is 34-24, 34-21, something like that, is the final score. In my opinion, I think Florida keeps it a little closer. At some point in the fourth, I think Georgia has some type of back-breaking touchdown that kind of seals the deal. One thing I will say, though, Dylan, and something that makes me a little more optimistic in this game, because you were just mentioning Georgia's offense, which is probably what we've talked about the least so far in previewing this game. Something that they are clearly missing from years past, and something that has really hurt the Gators in this game in years past, and really hurt mostly every team Georgia's played. Between Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, I think we didn't appreciate enough while they were at Georgia their ability to break games open.
We did with Bowers, not McConkey.
I agree. Yeah, that's probably fair. How many times in this Florida-Georgia game was it close for a quarter, close for a half, what have you, and then at some point, boom, Ladd McConkey catches a pass downfield, makes two guys miss, he's in the end zone. Bowers did
the juggled catch he had, was it on Amari
that
Burney?
Circus catch,
That's
right.
Unreal from a tight end.
How many times have we seen that, though, in this game in the last couple of years? In a game where Florida kept it respectable and then plays like that broke it open. Those are the plays that Georgia has lacked this season for the most part offensively. And I believe if Florida can continue that trend for them and keep a lid on the explosives, that's Florida's recipe defensively to hanging on in this game and not letting it get away from them. That the key is they're going to score points. We know that. They're going to have drives. We know that. Unfortunately, Trevor Etienne's going to get yards on them. We know this, right? But where Florida has shown improvement the last couple of weeks is they haven't given up the wide open, easy stuff, right? Against Miami and Texas A&M, there were plays that you and me could have completed down the field because a guy just busted coverage. That hasn't been the case as much as of late, And even more so, even more improvement on this defense is when guys on the other team have made 10, 15, 20-yard catches, Florida's tackled them. And they've not let good plays for the offense become great plays and become touchdowns. And that's allowed a little more bend, don't break style. And that's going to have to be the game plan, I think, for Florida in this game.
Yeah, I was just looking at the box scores the last couple of games. One person on Georgia's offense that was expected to be really good and fill in and really hasn't been productive as much in the box score is Oscar Delp. And he's really, really good. He's one of the top tight ends in the country. He'll probably get his. I just feel like Oscar Delp's just going to have one of those games where he's going to have 3 big plays. Florida's just going to not have an answer for him. And if you look at Georgia's box score, I mean, I know they had a lot of short fields. Carson Beck had no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Etienne ran for 4.5 yards per carry, and Carson Beck only threw for 175 yards.
Against Texas?
Yeah. And there was no receiver that had ever 3 catches for 40 yards. So we'll see.
That game, Dylan, was over before it started because of Georgia's defensive line.
Yes.
That unit single-handedly they won that game in the first.
It was 23-0 at the half.
Yeah, they won that game in the first quarter. Georgia's defensive line did, not necessarily just because of the score, but just because of the mentality that they created in that game. I mean, you can't tell me they didn't strike serious fear in that Texas offense. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, and they took the crowd out immediately.
Of course.
And then when you do that, you're in good shape.
An elite defensive line will do that.
Yeah. So big news came out yesterday. Brett McMurphy broke the news. I don't know if it's official, but if he's reporting, it's probably pretty close to being official. I think it's in 26 and 27 when the Jaguars are getting their stadium renovated. It's going to go 1 year to Tampa and 1 year to Atlanta. I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about it because really wasn't on the top of mind. I did not think that this was going to go home and home just because you just make too much money at these neutral site games. When you're on a neutral site, both teams get a paycheck. When you're at home and home, the home team gets the paycheck, and that's really about it. And the way that Kirby Smart said the last couple of years and how he's put a lot of pressure, go back to, I think it was last year he said a comment on it. Go back to 2019, he said a comment.
You can go back to basically every year that he's asked about.
But I'm saying those two in particular, where he really put the hammer down.
SEC media days, he's always got something to say about it.
He wants that recruiting visits. He wants to be at home and wants to have another notch. I have the sense that if it were to go home and home in Gainesville and Athens, it would be really hard to pull it away from those two once it got there.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I also think, to your point about to me, this news that McMurphy just dropped about the fact that, okay, 2 years, that would be easy as ever to make this home and home.
I did in the 90s.
The easiest excuse ever to make this home and home while the Jaguars are renovating and aren't going to have the stadium for them to play the game in. The fact that it's still not home and home, that tells me that this isn't going to be home and home for the foreseeable future. Because you hit the nail on the head with the money the schools make and the money the athletic department makes from these games, it's too much to pass up to not make it a neutral site. And something that I was told about yesterday that I had never thought about, which is a great point. Now with NIL, these schools are strapped for cash more than they've ever been. Because they've got the money for the facility and stadium renovations when they want to do it and all of that. I'm not saying they're strapped for cash in that way. The big time SEC schools can pay for that stuff. I'm talking about NIL and paying the players. There's a reason every school's got a collective now, and they're trying to make these subscription bases where you and me pay $5 a month to help donate to the Gator. It's not the Gator Collective anymore, but Florida Victorious and all that, right? So with that going on, and with the schools needing as much money as possible to build up as beefy of a roster as possible, you're telling me they're going to forego millions, close to tens of millions of dollars, like probably around $10 million every 2 years to play the game home and home for recruiting visits. At this point, when Kirby made those comments, I think he was right, like back in 2019. But with NIL now, it's more advantageous to collect that money by playing at neutral site, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not a coach. Kirby obviously is more in tune on what's going on with recruiting than I am, but like that's what I would, just a simpleton's perspective, that's what I would think.
Yeah, and I think I was just about to say something. I know the deal with Jacksonville is only going to be for the next few years before they have to renew the deal. It's not like it's a deal that's done for the next 20 years and it's already done. The visits that Florida, Georgia, the last couple of years, it might have been 3-4 years ago, they've allowed recruiting visits on at the game where you couldn't in years past. So that's changed. I forget the exact details. But I mean, it's just, you think of college football, you think of tradition, and you always think about Oklahoma, Texas being at the old Cotton Bowl. You think Florida, Georgia being in Jacksonville. It's just, it's one of those things. And selfishly, of course, I would like to have it at Florida, Georgia. I mean, I'd probably drop everything and go to those two games in Athens and in Gainesville because it would just be so unique. It would just be different. You always hear the stories about when Spurrier went to Georgia and, you know, how it was up there. And I mean, I know Florida was dominant, but you know, I would just like to see it at least just one time in my lifetime because this is, like you said, this is probably the only time that we're not going to see it in Jacksonville for our lives, probably for the next 20 years.
Yeah, you're telling me the Jaguars just made a huge deal to renovate the stadium to not keep Florida, Georgia here. You're crazy. Like that game's going to be here for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. And again, to what I was just saying, like with NIL, there's no way the school is going to forego that kind of money now. There's no way. I don't believe so.
No.
Those two games would have been cool. I agree with you. It would have been different. It would have been fun because that's not a game. You know, we never see Georgia in the swamp. Georgia never sees the Gators in Athens. So that would have been cool. I agree. It would have been cool for you and I with the next generation to be able to tell the same stories of, I remember that one time they played it. Like, it would be cool. But the fact that they didn't do it tells me everything I need to know about where the future of this game is.
Do you care to go to the game in Tampa and Atlanta?
Yeah. I don't know about Atlanta because it's a little further. I guess they're about the same distance, but I'm just more familiar with Tampa.
I mean, a 4 hour from where we are, it's about a 4 hour drive compared to a five and a half.
Yeah, we'll see when we'll cross that bridge when we get there and kind of see if I actually end up. I bet if I had to put money on it, I bet I'll end up going to at least one of them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Probably
be shocked
same.
if I go to the Tampa one.
Yeah.
Having friends in Tampa, having Gators in Tampa, probably will end up going to that one at least.
Gotcha. All right. That's about all I got, Graham. I got a big game tonight against Ed White, parents' alma mater.
Baldwin Indians versus the Ed White Commanders.
Side, Old Middleburg Road. Yeah, baby, it's about that time. You know, they always do the public schools play on Thursday, private schools play on Friday. I like that. Cops split it up. There's the security, you know, that kind of thing. Get the season over.
I just last week figured out who Ed White was.
Really?
Like the historical person, Ed White. I didn't know.
Yeah,
who
he was an astronaut.
Yeah.
He went to the moon, and now they named it after him. I think that school was built like in the 60s or something.
What is his tie to Jacksonville though?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that part out.
I just Googled it the other day.
I was like, is he from? He's from like Texas. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, you feel good about tonight? Are the Baldwin Indians going to represent website well?
You know, Ed White's always got big dudes up in the line of scrimmage. We don't usually.
That's a problem in football.
Yeah, well, last year we were tied 14-14, and then they made a decision to run behind their big fat guys, and we didn't have an answer for it. So we'll see. I just coach. You know, a lot of people think that what happens in high school football is replicative to Saturday and Sunday, and it's not. You're coaching 14 and 15-year-olds, so, you know, a 15-year-old could have, you know, not get a text back from a girl, and that would make him, you know, not play well. You deal with that a lot.
Would that make you not play well when you were in high school?
Probably not. It wouldn't have an effect. Not me.
You don't go outside, so.
Yeah. I didn't get that Snapchat back, and I played pissed off. All right, Saturday night, evening, 7 o'clock-ish. The game will be over. We'll give y'all post-game. Everybody's going to bring their drink.
I'll be at the game, so I'll be...
Are you going to the game for real?
Yeah. I'll be... But we'll still be doing a show. I'll probably be outside the stadium or something.
Interesting.
Doing the show. Yeah.
How much was your ticket?
It was $0 because I got it from the station.
This man's privilege just gets into all these things. Man.
Going to speaking of going to games, everybody that follows us and is following the Gators and whatnot, Florida basketball tips off on Monday night.
USF.
Boy, really, really sad about Amir Abdul-Rahim.
Yeah, that's
USF's guy. That sucks,
awful, man.
That really
is
sucks.
awful.
Really, he had a good program going there too, which is crazy.
Walter Clayton is a preseason
All SEC.
What's the award?
Preseason All SEC.
Was it that? I thought, what's the best basketball player in the college basketball?
Naismith.
That's the Naismith. Yes, he's on that list. That's all I got for you for college basketball.
They'd have to be. I don't know if the Gators will be good enough for him to win that award. I think the Gators are going to be good, but they that award normally goes to like a team that's going to be like
a dude,
like a 1 seed in the tournament. Well, I think he will be. He's going to be one of the best players in the country, but that normally goes to like a team that's going to have like a 1 seed in the tournament. And I don't know if Florida's going to be quite there. I think they're going to be good, but I don't know if they're going to be quite there. I am ridiculously excited for Gator basketball. I'm going to make you be ridiculously excited about Gator basketball because it's fun. I'm going to watch every dribble this season, and I'm going to love it.
I'll start getting in tune once we get to about January because I'll be forced to. And then we'll go from there. You can't get me into basketball once we're in football season. Like, we do this every year. It's like, oh, basketball's here. Hey, Florida's all right. Good coach, good player here. So that's my basketball.
I really like Todd Golden a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really
He's
good
pretty
coach.
solid.
Yeah.
So, all right, I got to roll. We'll see y'all Saturday night.